As gas prices continue to spike for the summer months, we're seeing a nice increase in sales for gasoline electric hybrids. Honda knows this, and with the reintroduction of the Clarity plug-in vehicle, they now have a vehicle designed to attract that type of buyer. This week they sent me over the all-new Clarity plug-in. It's the first time we're seeing a 50-state sales application of the Clarity name. Is it any good in the plug-in electric vehicle space? That's what we're here to find out. Now, the Clarity name is not anything new to America. We've seen a vehicle like this in some form or another for the last 10 plus years. If you guys remember the old FCX Clarity, that was a fuel cell vehicle that was really only sold in California. For 2018, Honda is expanding the Clarity family, and this is kind of a vehicle that sits at the top of their electric vehicle lineup. This particular one being the one that's available in all 50 states. It's a plug-in hybrid, and you can see the design of the car definitely has a more polarizing look versus the all-new Insight that I just showed you guys. You have the current traditional Honda design language here with the split chrome grille, these standard LED, full LED headlights with an LED running light that kind of goes toward the actual bottom here. It's definitely a very unique look for the Clarity, and it kind of has more of like that hybrid frumpiness that we kind of know and expect from these type of vehicles. Now, and where this fits in the lineup, the Clarity is the biggest sedan that Honda makes, and it's available in two trims, a base and then a touring like this particular one. This color is also like a moonlit forest green. It's a really attractive shade of color or green that kind of has traces of blue depending on when the sunlight hits it. Now, the wheels that you get on this touring model are 18-inch wheels. They're 235/45 tires. They're actually a little bit bigger and fatter than what you get on the Accord hybrid, because remember, this sits higher up in the lineup versus the Accord hybrid. Now, being a plug-in hybrid, the plug to actually plug it in is right here, and Honda says when you have the level 2 charger, it only takes 2.5 hours to charge, or about 12 hours to charge when you have a trickle charge with the standard 120. Now, at a 108.2-inch long wheelbase, it is slightly shorter than the Accord, but at 192.8 inches long, it's a little bit longer than the Accord, which honestly, when you first look at the Clarity, you don't think it's that big until you're actually standing right by it. Now, one criticism that I have, and honestly a lot of people don't like it, is this rear end styling here with this kind of wheel skirt that covers it up. It kind of reminds me of a vehicle from like the 1950s. I don't like it. It's a it's a leftover design from Japan. As you guys know, this car is built and designed for the Japanese market, and it's actually been on sale in Japan for the last couple of years. Honda's finally bringing it to America for 2018. Now, at the back, you can see very interesting design language. Again, it's very polarizing compared to the new Insight. This is actually a glass window here in this portion here. It gives you that split view, kind of thinking, or you might think that it's actually a hatchback when it's not. You have some, badging here to show that it's a plug-in hybrid. No visible exhaust tips, which I expected. And then when you open up the trunk space in general is measuring around 15.5 cubic feet, which is matching that of the Insight. The seats still fold down 60/40, but because of the bigger battery here, it makes the seat or the floor rise up a little bit, so it does eat into the cargo space. So like most of the other Honda products, the Clarity does come standard with the company's smart key access system with push button start. You can see it's got a blue outlined key to show this is their hybrid model or their electric model. And the key is actually a little bit different than the other Honda products I've shown you. You can see you have your traditional lock, unlock, trunk release. This button here, if you push and hold the fan button, it's kind of like remote start, although the engine doesn't actually start up. Instead, it'll just kind of turn on the climate control system using the battery from the electric motor and cool the vehicle down. This button here, you actually press and hold every time you plug the vehicle in, and it will not charge unless you push and hold this button first, which I thought was an interesting step. It's definitely different, but nevertheless, once you figure that out, it's pretty easy to use. But as you approach the Clarity, like every other vehicle that has push button start, just keep the key fob in your pocket or your purse. Push this button here to lock the door. To unlock it, Honda does a sensor on the back of the handle. Just touch the button or touch the back of the handle and it'll unlock the door. Now, looking at the interior of my particular one, I really like the color combination with this green exterior with the ivory beige interior with the two-tone. It looks really upscale. It makes a really great first impression. The design itself is also a little bit on the quirkier side, somewhat traditional, but not as traditional as what I showed you guys in the new Honda Insight. I really like the ultra suede interior the material here that you find on the door panel and on the dash. But getting inside the Clarity, you can see it has a nice easy step-in height. It feels a little bit higher up versus the new Insight that I just drove. And then when you shut the door, it sounds nice and solid, so I wasn't expecting anything less. Now to turn the vehicle on, just put your foot on the brake and then push the button here to turn on all the electronics. You can see the gauges have a full LCD in the center and basically to the sides. They're pretty unique. The center display here, this is the Honda Link Infotainment System. It's an 8-inch display. This is actually the older Honda Link system. It's not the same newer one that I showed you in the Insight, which kind of reminds you that the Clarity has been around for a couple of years. No volume button, as you can see. This is the old head unit that definitely doesn't work as quickly or as well as the newer system, but you do still get features like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is definitely a great thing. Going back to the Honda display there, let's go to the interior materials because this interior is surprisingly nice. You can see really great soft touch ultra suede material that's on the dash here. This wood trim definitely looks on the real side until you start touching it, then it kind of reminds you that it's fake. It's definitely different. I didn't expect to see this type of wood in this interior. This upper dash material here is soft touch, and it's also soft-ish right here with the faux stitching that goes across the instrument panel hood. The door panels here, you can see it's the same soft touch materials with more of that suede, a nice padded armrest here with a nice little area here where you can put your phone. The windows are one-touch automatic for all four, so that's really nice. I wasn't expecting that. You have two-person memory seats, although the seats themselves, they don't have a power adjustable lumbar. They are 8-way power. Kind of wish that Honda had included that. The steering wheel comes right off of the Civic. You can see it's tilt and telescoping. You have paddles on the wheel which don't control the transmission. Instead, it controls the regenerative braking, just like I showed you guys in the Honda Insight. You can see the gauges here. They're very customizable. You can change the gauge instrument panel here by pushing this button right there. It'll cycle between all your different kinds of information. I typically had it on either the energy monitor, which was right here, or you can also have it on your fuel economy information. That average fuel consumption is a mixture of the electric and the gas engine, which I don't really know if I trust. Over here, you can see it'll show you your range, your EV range, and your hybrid vehicle range. The range itself is showing much higher than what the EPA rates this as. I mean, if you guys remember, it's a 47-mile range, and it's a 17 kilowatt-hour battery pack. So it's about half the size what you're going to get in something like the full plug-in vehicles, and a little bit less than what you get in the Chevrolet Bolt, but double what you get in a Toyota Prius Prime. Now, over here, I'm not going to go too much in depth with this, but you can see it's got the old navigation head unit where it's like a Garmin-based navigation system. It works fine, but the volume knob is sorely missing. They just really need to put the new Insight's infotainment system in this car just to kind of, update it. You have dual zone climate control here. You have 3-level heated seats, but no cooled seats, not available in this car. You have different drive modes here. Of course, there's an eco mode. There's also a sport mode, which will change the gauge display to kind of a reddish tint. The HV mode here, which stands for hybrid vehicle mode, when the battery is below 50%, if you push and hold this, it'll basically lock the vehicle in a hybrid mode where the gas engine will run continuously to kind of charge the batteries. It's a nice feature if you guys are trying to save your charge. You can see the push button transmission selector here is for your singles or your eCVT, which kind of has qualities of a single speed reduction transmission. Put the vehicle into reverse. You do have a backup camera, which has trajectory, no parking sensors, but you do have 3 different views, including a top-down view. The camera itself is decent quality. Over here, you can see lots of storage down here for your phone. Your USB port is down there with a power outlet, good cup holders right here, a nice padded armrest. Over here you can see it's a pretty decent size center console storage. The lid itself here doesn't actually move. No sunroof. Clarity does not offer a sunroof, which I think comes down to the decision that this car is built in Japan. The seats are pretty comfortable, not as comfortable as what I sat in for the new Insight, but you do feel like you have considerably more space. I mean, this is a big vehicle and you feel it as soon as you get inside. And the interior definitely has some conventional aspects of it, but it also has some very strange styling cues here and there to kind of remind you this car is designed and built in Japan as opposed to the Insight, which is built in America. So being as big as it is, the Clarity has a much bigger back seat compared to the competition, specifically the Chevrolet Volt and Toyota Prius Prime. But getting back here, you can see you have mid-size levels of space in the second row, plenty of legroom, plenty of foot space. The batteries itself live underneath the seat, so I do feel like I'm sitting a little bit higher. There's a slight hump here that takes up space, but in terms of the features, it's pretty nice. You have soft touch materials on the door handles with more of that suede material. You have vents back here, you have 2 map pockets, and I also really like this little area here where Honda lets you basically just put your phone. I think that's a really cool, nifty feature that other manufacturers need to add. Now, there is a nice little armrest here that folds down. It gives you dual cup holders, but one thing I'm missing here is no dedicated USB ports, just a power outlet, and then no heated back seats. So underneath the hood of the Clarity, you're gonna find the latest version of Honda's two-motor hybrid system. Now, this is very similar to what you find in the new Insight and the new Accord. However, the battery has been beefed up for the Clarity because it gives you 47 miles of electric-only range. The gas engine is a 1.5-liter L-Series 4-cylinder with VTEC. No direct injection, but it runs on the Atkinson cycle. The gas engine on its own makes like 106 horsepower, which is kind of similar to what the Insight is putting out. However, you have a much stronger electric motor that makes 181 horsepower on its own and like 294 foot-pounds of torque or something like that. Now, the total combined output is 212 horsepower, which is basically matching that of the Accord hybrid, despite the fact that it has a smaller gasoline engine. Now, it all goes out through an eCVT. Honda likes to call it a direct drive transmission, but it's not. It's technically an electronic CVT. It feels like an electric motor, kind of like what the Insight, how the Insight drove when I drove it, so it kind of has very instant torque. Now, fuel economy for the gas engine is 44 in the city and 40 highway, about 42 combined on regular gas. Honda says the gas engine gives you about 360 miles of range, so you're looking at a tick over 400 if you combine the two. This car is pretty heavy. It's front-wheel drive and it weighs a little over 4,000 pounds, so let's get out on the road and see how it all performs. So if you haven't had a chance to drive a modern-day Honda hybrid vehicle, you really need to do that because the way that Honda has really evolved their hybrid technology is truly stunning. I mean, compared to a hybrid vehicle from like 5 years ago from them, the two-motor system is such a huge improvement. And now that I've driven the new Insight, I've briefly driven the Accord hybrid, just not the latest one. I haven't showed you a full video on that yet. The Clarity definitely deserves to be at the top of the EV range for Honda. This is nothing like, you know, the previous mild hybrid system. This car has the ability to drive itself on pure electric power alone, which makes this car feel very, very modern and Tesla-like, dare I say it. And while it doesn't have the kind of speed that you get from a Tesla, the Clarity is definitely a much more affordable vehicle. And because it's kind of on its own unique platform, when I drive this thing, it doesn't remind me of driving like a Civic like I did with the new Insight. Everything else about this car is just really smooth. The visibility in here is really good. You have a good view out of the front, the sides. The view out of the back is strange because it has that split rear window, which is definitely weird, but you do have things like the Honda Sensing, which is standard. So you get the adaptive cruise control with automatic braking, you get the lane watch, you get the lane keep assist. One thing this vehicle is missing is blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert. I really wish Honda would have added that for this Clarity, but it shows that it's a little bit of an older vehicle. But you can see here, just driving the vehicle around, putting your foot down, like the gas engine really doesn't come on. Like it's mostly just all electric power. Even when my foot goes probably like 3/4 of the way down, like 75% throttle application, it's just incredible how torquey this thing is. And that's the one thing we love about electric motors is when you put your foot down, it just goes. And this is where an instant where the gas engine will come on. And that's where it kind of behaves a little bit like a CVT. The gas engine really only comes on unless you floor the accelerator past that click point. It's kind of similar to what the German cars do with that little click at the end. That's when the gas engine will come on. It'll come on a lot during this type of environment. I'm on the highway here, I'm on the interstate, and still the gas engine's not on. It's just cruising along electric power alone until like my foot goes to the floor, and then you hear it come on, and then that's when the car starts reminding you that this is kind of like a hybrid. It has that traditional, engine drone that nobody really likes. But if you are easy on the gas and don't go past, 50, 60%, this car will toot along like an electric car, basically like the plug-in hybrid that it is. But just cruising on the highway here at around 62 miles an hour, it's super comfortable and really quiet. There's very little wind and road noise. Of course, no engine noise because this is an electric mode right now. And the seats are really comfortable. This is a kind of a car that you may have to be careful because you could easily fall asleep while driving it. Thankfully, the Honda Sensing comes standard. But just as a daily driver commuting to and from work, theoretically you could use no gas. Now, what's the one thing about this car that I really enjoyed is in my week's worth of testing, I put 250 miles on it, and it still has a full tank of gas. I've never really seen that. Even when I had something like a Chevrolet Volt, it still ended up using some gas when the gas engine would come on. And it's really crazy to me. So if you guys, theoretically have a commute that's less than 50 miles, you could get away with essentially not using any gas for this type of car. Now let's talk a little bit about the Honda Sensing, because this does have the active lane keep assist. It has full stop and go, adaptive cruise control. So around this gentle curve here, I'm gonna see if it's turning the wheel for me. It does, it should, yes, but it's very, doesn't really turn very well. So instead you look like you're drunk, but I just wanted to show you that for demonstration purposes. But you can see here, if you're just trying to pass someone floored, a little bit laggy, but once the gas engine kind of kicks in, this vehicle speeds up nicely. I mean, with 236 foot-pounds of torque, it's a lot of torque, and 212 horsepower is a good amount of power. This does feel quicker than the new Insight that I drove, and that car felt like it got to 60 in around 8.5 seconds. I've seen the time roughly the same for this car. In terms of 0 to 60, which you don't buy this for 0 to 60, but in terms of the overall feel, this car definitely gives you more power than what I drove in the Chevrolet Volt and the Toyota Prius Prime. This car does have different drive modes. It usually defaults to a normal mode. If you want, you can go into an econ mode where it literally retards everything back. Sport mode makes everything more hyperactive. I definitely noticed a nice surge in power when I put it into sport. There's also an HV mode for hybrid mode. Now, when the battery is below 50%, if you push and hold HV mode, what it'll essentially do is it'll force the gas engine to come on all the time, so it'll use gas, but it also will hold the charge and help recharge the battery, so in case you're trying to save that range, or in case you're trying to actually, add a little bit of juice to the car. But let's go on this off-ramp here and see how the clarity feels. Hondas typically are sporty. Now this is eco tires, so it's definitely screaming a little bit, and the car does have a little body lane. The Insight was a little bit more sportier than this because it's a smaller car. You definitely feel the clarity's weight and size going along these off-ramps and into curves. But it's still surprisingly planted. It's still very confidence-inspiring, and it reminds you that Honda typically puts driving fun on a higher priority than some of the other manufacturers. The torque that you feel is just really great. But let's slow down here. I'm going to try to show you guys a little bit of an acceleration run. Floored to there. And this is with my foot to the floor. You can see the gas engine is screaming along, but we got to 60 in a reasonable time there. But again, you still have to be a little bit patient. This is not, Tesla quick by any means. But I want to talk about one thing here, the paddles on this car. Like a lot of other electric cars, it does have the Regen Brake function. And when you pull the left paddle here, it gives you 4 different levels of Regen braking, and right now I have it on the highest setting. It's definitely more aggressive than what I felt in the Insight for the Regen braking. It's also giving me an extra level. The Insight only gave me 3 levels. Occasionally I found that sometimes the car would automatically turn off the Regen, which annoyed me, but I kind of just wish that it had a similar system what I tried in the new Chevrolet Volt, where if you pull and hold the paddle, it'll continuously keep braking until you let go of the paddle, which I found myself kind of using that instead of the actual brakes when I wanted to slow down. But the fuel economy, I also want to briefly touch base on that. Now, Honda rates this car or the EPA rates it at 110 mpge. That number is a little bit less than what you get in the Prius Prime and Hyundai Ioniq, but more than what you get in the Volt. The gas mileage for the gas engine is actually 4440, which is definitely a little bit more thirsty than what you get in the Ioniq and Prius Prime, 10 mpg worse. The car's trip computer is showing me an interesting number when I go to the trip computer. It's showing me that I'm getting 105 mpg, which is definitely the MPGe number. In my week's worth of testing, I didn't use any gas, so it was difficult for me to actually test out the gas number, no matter how hard I tried. Just plugging it in overnight, using it the next day, which is kind of what people are going to be using this car. It's interesting because the range right now is showing like 440 miles for the gas-owned engine, which is about 100 miles more than what the EPA quotes this car, since it has a 7-gallon gas tank. So my guesstimation is that it gets better gas mileage than what the EPA suggests. I was able to verify the 47 miles of electric-only range. It's pretty good. So Honda's definitely set the range quite competitively for their plug-in version of the Clarity. So as most of you guys know, Honda hasn't had the best luck sales-wise when it comes to hybrid vehicles. However, with the company promising a full lineup of electrified vehicles by 2025, they've really had to step up their game in this particular segment of vehicle. And the Clarity, well, it's designed to be at the forefront, designed to be at the top of the chain in terms of their electrified vehicle lineup. And after spending a week with this 2018 Clarity plug-in hybrid, I have to say, when you compare it to its main competitors like the Chevrolet Volt and the Toyota Prius Prime, it's definitely one of my favorites. It's one of the best driving, it's It's one of the quickest in terms of acceleration, and it has the most interior space in the segment, which is really going to count for a lot here in the American market. A couple of cons with the Clarity: its design. I just can't really get on board with it. I really don't like the rear end with that wheel skirt. The front end looks okay. This green color works for me, but I think Honda should have probably gone with a little bit more of a conventional look. The only thing they really need to get rid of is that wheel skirt that I don't really like in terms of the actual aesthetics of the car. So if you're looking to get a plug-in hybrid vehicle, what's it going to cost to put a Clarity plug-in hybrid in your driveway? Well, this car starts a little bit more than a lot of its competition at around $33,600. It's about $1,000 cheaper than a Volt, but like around $5,000 more expensive than a Prius Prime. Now keep in mind, Honda does equip the Clarity a lot better than some of its competition, like the Honda Sensing that comes standard, and it is a bigger vehicle that gives you more space. This one being the top of the line Touring, stickers for around $36,300, plus destination you're looking at around $37,000, which is again right in line with all of its competitors, fully loaded. And then if you guys purchase this car in America, you can also take advantage of a $7,500 tax credit from the feds, which will in turn, lower this car to about $30,000, which makes it a pretty good option if you're looking for a comfortable, fuel-efficient commuter car that gives you the possibility of not having to use any gas depending on your actual commute distances. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2018 Honda Clarity plug-in. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.